Thank you for joining us today for the virtual Sunday service with the Center for Creative Living. CCL, a charter of the Universal Church of the Master, has served and supported the spiritual needs of its community here in the Bay Area for over 20 years.
Good morning, good morning. I'm going to want you to work today. This is not just I'm going to sit here and running the show, because I'm going to be talking about what would you stand up for. And as you probably saw in the program that was sent out for CCL Insights, the programs are right over here, Kathy. Did you get one?
Over here.
And to me, this absolutely says what we're going to be talking about today. And if you could read it with me, because I think it's so important. They first came from the communists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Catholics, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Catholic. Then they came for me, and by that time, no one was left to speak up. And this was written by Peter Niemler, who was a gay Nazi victim. And for me, that is so true with all that's going on now. That what I want to talk about today is, what do you stand up for? And I'm going to ask you later on to write down you've got a card in the back here, and it says, what would you stand up for in life? And as I'm talking, I might come up with something that you'd go, yes, that's what I'd stand up for. And that we have to look at that. Time is when they're saying bad things about people. And I don't care who the people are. You don't run around saying bad things about people, because that's not what any religion preaches. We're all part of the Creator. And because we're all part of the Creator, we need to all the time think about, what would God do? However you follow, if you're following Jesus, if you're following Muhammad, if you're following Krishna, I don't care who you're following. None of them say go out and shoot everybody. That's not what they're talking about. We're talking about the representations of God who talk about loving everyone, okay? So we're going to start out with a meditation this morning, and so I'd like you all to get comfortable and ask our wonderful Reverend Dr. Janet Childs to come up here with a beautiful guitar. And I want you all to just put your feet flat on the floor and close your eyes and follow the sound of my voice. Each one of you is on a journey. Visualize your journey. Your journey is finding truth. Your journey is finding the Creator's energy. Your journey is moving through life happy and fulfilled. But your journey is also being there to defend those who can't defend themselves. So I want to have you visualize walking into a big city. This city could be Chicago, New York, San Francisco, just a big city. And as you walk into this city, you realize that there are people sleeping in tents. There are people standing on corners with their hands out, dirty hands that haven't been washed for a while. And as you walk through the streets, spread love to those that you see that meet your eyes. Smile. And if you feel like it, ask them how they're doing, and if there's something you can do to help. When you get to the man or the woman or the child who has a cup looking for coins, smile and dig in your pocket and see what you have. Helping others is the greatest gift you can give that helps us spread love throughout the land. That's what you are. You're a person who can feel the energy of others. So many of you here are metaphysicians, you're psychic, you're in tune, and yet you haven't seen fit to take that ability to help those in need. So while we're sitting here, and while you can see faces of people you don't know, black faces, brown faces, faces of every hue in this big city that you're traveling through. Each time you see a face, smile. Let your love of humanity come through. And know that this is one of the things you can stand up for, is helping people, not ignoring them and their cries for help or their cries for friendship. Now just take another nice deep breath and open your eyes and listen to the wonderful Janet.
Oh, what will I open my heart to in this world, in this moment? What calls my soul forth to speak my truth and advocacy for those I hold dear? Open my heart, let the streams of light flow out to the world that needs my love. And let me not be afraid for what I might lose. Let me call upon the greater cascade, the cascade of light flows through me, and I am made whole. The cascade of light, I can shine it forth, I can be made whole, and all I am is this moment now. What I do is what my heart calls out for me to bring to the world, to bring to myself, to bring to humanity. What will it be? What will I hold? What will I bring to the home of my soul? Let me bring it. Oh, let me feel it. Let me hold it. And let me be it. I will be an open-hearted beam of light. I will see what is here for me.
Take a nice deep breath. Thank you so much, Reverend Janet. That was wonderful. How many of you don't enjoy confrontation?
Do not enjoy it.
Yeah. How many of you?
Do not.
Yeah. And how many of you feel that it freaks you out and you're not going to talk about it? You're not going to be confrontational. Well, you don't need to be confrontational. Most of the time, all you need to do is just listen. If somebody's going on and on and on, I mean, what you do is you just listen. And you'd be surprised how then you start feeling better about what's happening. You can bring in whatever strength you want and how you do it, and how you want to step forth. And look at the things that you feel you can change. Sometimes you're not too sure what you can change. So for today, what we've got, everybody should have a program, and on the back of it is a card that I'm going to want you to fill out that says, what would you stand up for? And we're going to ask you later on to do just that. Stand up for something. Because many of you have maybe even more than one thing that you would like to stand up for, okay? I have had a very interesting life. And I'm going to be talking a lot about that. But I want to start out with, where would we be if the Puritans had said, we're not going to take this anymore? We'd all still be living in Europe. Okay, where would we be if Martin Luther hadn't gone out and put on the board all the things that he was upset with the Catholic Church? We wouldn't have any Protestants. Those people who protested, that's what it means. There's so many things that way we got them in our realm was because they stood up. And I have fought a lot for things that I believe in. But one of the things that was the most interesting was when I was 12 years old. We lived in student housing in UCLA because my dad was going to law school. And I was 12 years old in a student housing where most people had 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old kids, and nobody to take care of them. And here I was, this 12-year-old who knew how to take care of kids. I was in demand. It was great. And one day the people next door said, Dottie, could you come over and take care of our little girls? We're having a group here, and you can be in the bedroom and make sure they go to sleep and all that. And I said, sure. And these are cute little black girls who I had grown so accustomed to being in their house and taking care of them because they always said, we want Dottie. You know, that was just it. I was closer to their age. And so while I was there, I got them to sleep, and I walked out to this group that was meeting. And this man came up to me and said, hi, what's your name? And I said, my name's Dottie. And he said, Dottie, don't you believe all people should be treated equally? And I said, yeah. And he said, here, have a cookie. Okay. And then he said, and don't you think that the way some people are treated is really bad, including where you are now with these people? And I said, yes, I do. And he said, here, have another cookie. Well, he had me sold. And he went on and on asking me what I believed in. It was all sounded like what I believed in. So he said, here, sign this. And I did, saying I, Dottie, agree to this. And 2 weeks later, we received a copy of the Daily Worker in the mail. Well, the Daily Worker is a communist newspaper, and with it was a little card that said Dottie was now a member of the party, the Communist Party. And my dad, what?
What was your dad doing?
My dad was going to law school to become an attorney. Guess what year this was? 1949, and Senator McCarthy was raising holy heck about people who were members of the Communist Party, and here they're looking at their 12-year-old who just did this. Well, my dad decided he was going to get to the bottom of this, and so I told him, Dad, I just went over there and I agreed with everything you said, and they gave me cookies. I mean, what's so wrong with that, you know? And so he wrote the organization and sent a copy of my birth certificate saying this young lady has no right signing these types of things. But I thought of that later, and yeah, I was at that age standing up what I believed in and what he said. And of course, cookies. But and remember another 12-year-old, Janet Child, when she marched with Martin Luther King. She stood up for what 12-year-old, especially 12-year-old girls. I mean, they've got power, and you said, hey, I believe in him, and I'm gonna there. If you can imagine this little blonde in the middle of two very tall black men walking down the street, and I'm sure people noticed you, and it was so great for standing up for what you believe in. And then sometimes I've accidentally stood up for things, way back a long time ago when I was straight. BC. Anyway, a friend of mine, Rosellen, was asked to audition to be in a film for gay rights. And she said, oh, okay, Dottie, you want to go with me? I'm going to go up to San Francisco. And I said, sure, that sounds like fun. Well, we went up, and this director who directed Streets of San Francisco, it was a big production. He came up and looked at me and said, do you want to be in this film? And I said, no, my friend does. And he said, no, we want somebody that looks like you. And me, and he said, you look like a housewife. I wasn't sure that was a compliment. I said, okay. And so I was all excited about it. I was going to, and I had to come back to be filmed. And so here we are, and there was somebody dressed up as a baseball player, somebody as a torch song singer. There were all these people in different uniforms, and here I am in my little house dress, It happened to be right in the middle of this group. And they played a song that says, these are people that are coming out of the closet. Some of you have umbrellas, some of you have galoshes, some of you have this. And these people are here to say, don't keep us in the closet. And it was the Whitman Radcliffe Foundation. And so they got filmed, and I thought, well, that was that. Some of them got a SAG card for it. And for me, I wasn't really looking for that. I went, okay, an interesting afternoon. And they had a craft trailer where you got to eat all this food. There again, I work for food, you can tell. And so I didn't think anything would happen. And then Harvey Milk was shot. And the only thing they had that represented San Francisco's gay community was the film that they had done for the Whitman Radcliffe Foundation. And it was shown every night at 11 o'clock. And people started noticing I was in front and center. And they'd come up and say, Dottie, I didn't even know you were gay. How nice to see you. And I went to a party, and this guy came up and says, hey there, Dottie. You want to dance with me? Or would you rather dance with my wife? And I said, whoever's the best dancer, And I was accosted by a woman in the women's bathroom at Lockheed where I was working. She came up and said, it's people like you that are going to go to hell. And this is, how did you get a clearance here? You shouldn't have been given a security clearance. And here I was going home to my husband. I mean, I don't know what this was. I couldn't understand all of this vehemence. And then I said, hey, wait a minute. No. And I next time I saw her, I said, no, you're not going to berate anybody again. I'm bigger than you, and I will take you on if you do, okay? Guess where I saw her the next time? In a gay bar. She who protests too much, okay? But that was really interesting. So there again, I was standing up for a group of people that I felt had really been put upon. And, when I did that, I didn't realize I was really making a statement because those ads went all around the United States and I don't know where else. And for probably 6 months, I was really well known. And I don't know if any of you have ever had a moment where you've been photographed or people know who you are, and then the photograph's not going around anymore and nobody knows who you are. Have you ever had that? You had fame for a little bit of time, and then all of a sudden I'd walk into a place and smile and nobody cared. But I had that moment of knowing that I wanted to stand up for these people. The same thing happened when my mom married my stepdad, who was Jewish. Anytime I'd hear people say anything negative about the Jewish faith, I stood up and said, my stepfather is one of the nicest men I've ever met, and whatever. And I realized that during my life, I was always standing up for things. And one of the reasons was my dad was an attorney in a small town. And as I've mentioned before, he not only was a charter member of the NAACP, he also represented the Ku Klux Klan. He felt that everybody was entitled to representation. So being raised by somebody like that was interesting as a child because I never knew who was going to be walking through the door, including Goodwin Knight, who was the governor of the state of California, came and stayed at our house. I mean, my dad was pretty big. Yeah, he was. He was 6'5" and weighed 350 pounds. So my dad was a big man, but he was also pretty big in some of the politics that were going on. But I watched him stand up for all these people, and I was so impressed by that. He even was golfing one day with our friend Wally, and then my dad was the mayor of the town. And the guy comes walking out to the golf course and says, "I'm sorry, but this gentleman will have to leave." And my guide said, "Why?" He said, "Well, he's black." And my dad said, "Yes." He said, "Well, we don't allow people of his kind to play golf here." And my dad said, "Well, then you don't want me to play golf either, do you?" And walked off the course. The rules changed. Because when the mayor of the town will be seen at the golf course, it has a big, something behind it, a rallying behind it. And Wally and his wife June were really good friends of the family. In fact, my sister, we talks about some of the happiest times she can remember are being with Wally and June. So for my dad, it wasn't just defending his right because of his color of his skin, but it was defending a friend. And I really have always looked at how, as I was growing up, there were these instances where things were doing like that. In 1984, I was on the board of the trustees of the Salvation Army in a little town called Lancaster. And there again, helping out people. And they would come to the Salvation Army and say, "We don't have any money, we don't have any place to stay, and no place to sleep, and it's now 42 degrees out. Can the Army help us?" And we always said, "Sure." And if we didn't have a place for them at the Salvation Army headquarters, we would take them home to stay with us. I've never been around such a really giving group. Lately, they've got a bad rap politically. I don't know. I'm not part of it anymore because I have other things I'm doing. But being a member of the Salvation Army to me was so great. There again, to be able to stand up for people who are in need. So when you think about what is your past, what have you done where you stood up? My full-time job was working for an attorney who represented the Federal Housing Administration. That was my full-time job. My part-time job was managing 57 apartments, which I did in the evening and on the weekend. And so I really was busy and had two babies, two small children. So I was working, and all of a sudden the captain of the local basketball team said, "I went out and I got some great basketball players. I got basketball players from Chicago. I got basketball players from, places in Alabama." And all of these places he went over into the south or in the eastern part of the United States and got these gorgeous black basketball players. I mean, these men, none of them are more than 19. But we don't have any place to put them. And the only integrated apartment house complex in Lancaster is yours. And that's how bad, that's what it was like during that period of time. And I said, okay. They came with their clothes on their back. They had very little money. And it was, starting into basketball season, it was cold. They didn't have any blankets. And I just went around to my tenants and said, "We've got these young men, they're moving in, do you have it?" And so we scrounged enough blankets and everything else. Well, Our little town didn't know what hit them. Every little white cheerleader was just so enamored of these beautiful men. It was like they'd seen God for the first time, you know. They were screaming through, some of them lived upstairs, and they were screaming at them, "Hey, Randy, hey, Joel, hey, Gay, you know, come let me look at you." And, kind of a ruckus, but I was still standing up for the ability to be able to rent, because I was renting for the Federal Housing Administration. And as you would can just imagine, this basketball team was the best they ever had at Antelope Valley Junior College. And because these young men wanted to show that they could really play ball. Well, one of the ones that I really enjoyed was Johnny. And Johnny was so homesick. And Johnny would come over, and he didn't have a phone. There was no such thing as any kind of cell phones then. And so Johnny would come over to our place that we shared a common wall. And he'd come in and he said, "Can I use your phone to call my mom collect?" And I'd say, "Okay." And so he was from Peoria, wherever that is. And so somewhere where it was cold. And so he would come in and he'd say, "Okay." And he'd call his mom and he'd talk and he'd talk. And then pretty soon he'd come over, not just to call his mom, but just to have a friendly voice. And then he started realizing that my kids were like his brothers then, and they were always out. He was teaching them how to play basketball and all this. And one day I'd collected the month's rents, and I had them in a receipt book. And there was about $4,000 in this receipt book. And one of the tenants called and they had an emergency, and I left. And it wasn't until I was out of the house that I realized I had left Johnny back with the receipt book. And I'm not real easily swayed by anything, but I was standing there thinking, should I trust this man? Should I trust this 19-year-old who is away from home, who has no money? And I thought, yes, I will. But it was still, came back home, I came in, and the book was gone. And I went, oh no, and Johnny, you have that, and all of a sudden, he knocks on the door and he says, "Mrs. Boone, you left a book with all this money in it, and I couldn't figure out any place to put it, so I stuck it in the oven, and I wanted to tell you before I get there." Well, where would you stick it? Would you, it's not your house, and you want to save something, so. And I thought, oh, thank God. I mean, I was right. Just because you don't know the people, you don't know where they've come from, don't stop trusting. It was just one of those things. And so when I was older, I moved up here, and I worked for Lockheed Missiles and Space. And I was a senior buyer, and I was working, and I was talking about, okay, look we've got this payload over here, and this payload here, and this is this. I had no idea what a payload was. And one day I went into a conference, and they said, the payload, we're now measuring it in mega deaths. And I went, mega deaths was the payload. And I quit. And they said, "Why are you quitting? You got this great job." Because I'm not going to work for a company. It never had sunk in that that's what I was ordering missiles for. And so it was at that point that somebody once said to me, "Dottie, you worked there 9.5 years. If you'd worked 10, you could have gotten your retirement." Now I look back going, maybe I should have stayed. But no, that's when I stood up. That's when I said, no, I'm not going to be doing that. And, so many of our religious leaders are revered by their standing up. And I want to read something that when Martin Luther, when I mentioned, when he started the Reformation, he stated, "I do not accept the authority of popes and councils because they have contradicted each other. My conscience is captive in the word of God. I cannot and will not recant anything, for to go against my conscience is neither right nor safe. So help me God." my conscience right and safe. And I went, wow, talk about confirmation. He was a priest, and he went up against the Holy Roman Church and changed history. And I found some women that changed history. And one of them was this Sojourner. I don't know what it was, but Sojourner, what was her last name? I can't. Sojourner Truth. Yes, thank you. When the white man tried to take over a meeting of women who were going to be putting out a vote for women's rights, Sojourner Truth got angry, and she stood up and made a speech on a spot called "Ain't I a Woman?" And this is what it says. Well, children, where there's so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. I think that twixt the Negroes of the South and the women of the North all talking about rights, the white men will be in a fix pretty soon. But what's all this here talking about? That men over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place. And ain't I a woman? Look at me, look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could be the head of me. And ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it, and bear the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most all sold off to slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? Then they talk about this thing in the head. What's this they call it? And a member of the audience whispers, intellect. That's it, honey. What's that got to do with women's rights or Negroes' rights? If my cup won't hold but a pint and yours holds a quart, wouldn't you be mean not to let me have my little half measure full? Then that little man in black there, he says women can't have as much fight rights as men because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with it. If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, these women together ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. And now they is asking to do it. The men better let them. Obliged to you for hearing me, and now old Sojourner ain't got nothing more to say. Wow. I think she said it pretty well. I'd never heard that talk of ain't I a woman? And I thought that's really, talk about standing up. Because most of you don't realize it, but when they were going for women's rights, they didn't include the black women. And she stood up and said, ain't I a woman? At the women's hall where they were talking about that. We have so many other things of where people stood up. I know that in 1960, when John F. Kennedy was running for president, I was working in Lancaster and happened to be in the district where the big Catholic church of town was, and the nuns came to vote. So here we have all these nuns in their black habit, and they all come in with their arms in their sleeves, kind of shuffling in, and they all stand there. None of them had any idea how to use a voting machine because they'd never voted before, but they all knew they were going to vote for Mr. Kennedy. And so I had the privilege of going into the voting booth with, there were 7 of them, 6 of them wanted to go in and vote. The Mother Superior said, that's okay, they're all doing it for me. And okay. That was one of those things of watching her just stand there and stand up for her sisters, the right to be able to vote for the first Catholic that had ever run for president. It was one of those things that really impressed me. So in this election year, think of all these people that I've talked about and how they stood up. Stand up for what you believe in. And please, don't see fit to tell everybody else what to do. If whatever you want to stand up for is something that you have thought about, and know that, our boundaries are how we maintain safety. But don't say to yourself, I'm not going to be safe if I give people my feelings about things. Let people know it's yours. Don't say, you should. Stop saying what people should. Tell people what you are doing. I'm going to be voting for this person because I listened to this and I really like it. I really like what they have to say. Because it's so important that you can stand up for something, especially when you feel in your gut that something isn't right. How many of you have ever felt something wasn't right and felt it in your gut? And what'd you do about it? Sometimes you turned around and went the other way. Other times you just said, okay, I'm gonna do something about this. I have found it's usually only worth it to engage with someone that you feel might listen. If you know they're not going to listen, why are you standing there spouting anything? But there's so many people who would like to listen, so start looking at what you can say. So don't go out of our way to engage with the folks just because you don't agree with them. Go out of your way to stand up for what you believe in. And so, are you your biggest cheerleader? I want each one of you to write down what you would stand up for. Are you going to stand up for a new building to help people? Are you going to stand up for the poor? Are you going to stand up for the elderly? Are you going to stand up for the queer? Who are you going to stand up for when somebody comes knocking at the door? And I know for me, these are some of my suggestions. I stand up for myself when I state my beliefs. I appreciate it when you don't swear around me. When people swear, it makes me afraid. Only because I didn't get spanked very often, but when I did, it's right after I had done something and somebody swore at me. I don't discuss politics. I'll let you know who I am. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you what you should do. And please, when I'm talking to you, let me make my point before you start talking. Those are things that are some of the things I stand up for. And so, I always, don't use a combative tone. Just say, hey, this is what I believe in. So, who could stand up now and tell us what they'd stand up for? Yes, Kathy?
So what came to my mind is I'm from Wyoming, and
Right.
I became a heavy equipment operator in the mine because I wanted to stand up for women being able to do the job and getting paid what men paid and be equal. And Wyoming is the equality state. And this little tiny town in 1860, a woman, territorial governor, got women the right to vote.
Yes.
In 1860, in this small community. And it was because there were a lot of miners for gold mining, and they wanted to build a community, and they knew they needed women. So they gave women the right to vote for the first place in the United States.
Great. Hey, that's a good thing to stand up for. Okay, yes. Chris,
I just would like to know if I can distribute
because you stand up for gay rights?
beads to people who share with us what they stand up for.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We didn't do beads today. Oh, okay, Mary, are you going to stand up for something?
I'll stand up for a whole lot.
Oh, come on, Mary, stand up, and then Chris will come give you your
Give it
beads.
to us.
Okay, well, doggies, animal rights, love, LGBTQ plus, and Kennedy. Kennedy's running, but nobody knows that
Uh-huh.
because they've kept it really silent. And so,
Thank you. Thank you so much. There you go. Yeah, that was great. Yes, Christine.
Of course, LGBTQ
Stand up. Do you stand up?
and women and children.
Uh-huh. Very important.
For women's rights, and children just are at my heart.
Thank you. Okay, Christine, what would you stand up for?
A lot.
Come on, stand up.
Animal rights. So, I adopted 3 dogs and 3 cats.
Wow.
Women's reproductive rights. So every year on my birthday on Facebook, I have a contribution thing for Planned Parenthood. Because it's my belief, if they chip away at abortion, they're going to start chipping away at birth control.
Right, thank you.
The right of people to vote. Gay and lesbian rights. I don't know. Just
Sounds
the rights of the disadvantaged.
That sounds great. Lauren?
Yes.
Thank you.
This was part of my journey. It was standing up for my health and also the health of others.
Great, great.
Yes.
Thank you. Corky, what would you stand up
Well,
for?
I would stand up, I would stand up if I could. Here's my butt. Okay, so to love whomever I wish to love, and to be educated, to not be married if I don't want to be, to vote, to work, to drive, to dress in my fashion, healthcare. What's right? I stand up for what's right.
What you think's right? Yeah, great, great. Okay, Brianna. Okay.
So I remember growing up in the Bible Belt and having a little yellow Volkswagen with right on the back trunk, if men became pregnant, abortion would be a sacrament. In the friggin' middle of the Bible Belt. So I guess, I had a way of not, worrying about what other people thought about it.
And your car was always safe, huh?
Nobody destroyed it.
That's great.
I love it.
And I've stand up for people personally in their lives. Like I remember in Austin, Texas, there was a woman who was going through a legal battle for custody of her child, and she was lesbian, and her ex-husband was really going to town. And so I was just her support support system. And there was a place called Stonehaven that was funded by a millionaires Italian woman where it was for women. And I remember going out there, and it was just neat to get in contact with this underground network that happened. So a lot of personal standing up for people. And then, the last, nature. Nature, I'm always standing up for nature. I'm caring for the birds. I'm still concerned about the birds because the avian flu is going to cows and chickens, and I'm steadfast about that and advocating for butterflies.
Wonderful.
Did that yesterday because they took down this passion flower at Smart and Final at Ray Street in San Carlos, and I went all the way to the property manager to tell them that was a vine that supported some native butterflies, and to talk to the landscape people at the San Jose department. So, it's just in little acts in everyday life. And my big one has been with Subud and the narcissistic helpers at Subud at Palo Alto who have said I'm not allowed to speak. And I believe Subud is for all of humankind, and they have been so nasty.
Who is this?
The Subud helpers at Subud at Palo Alto.
It's a religious organization.
It's a spiritual group. And I have stood up, but I have learned so much about how people are afraid of conflict, and they want their friends to get their way, and so they won't stand up for me because they don't want to embarrass their friends, and how codependency works. So I've learned a whole lot that I continue to, if people don't want to listen, I'm in that sort of situation. So I still continue to keep my boundary that, I can't acknowledge somebody as a helper who can't have a conversation. So I had to really learn that I just speak my boundary and know that I'm going to be ignored by people who are trying to make sure their friends get what they want.
Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, okay, Jan Jan.
So, I stand up, equality, freedom, just to be whatever you want and need to be. Meaningful connections full of truth and love. And our beloved mother, our beloved mother, our beloved mother, our beloved mother, and all the animals, plants, and beings that fulfill us. May we be in harmony. May we be in harmony. I said, 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 may we be in harmony.
And see, just because you stand up doesn't mean you can't dance too. Okay. Chris, what do you stand up for?
My narcissistic thoughts.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. Okay, Mel, what do you stand up? Stand up and tell us what you stand up
I did.
for.
You do?
At the
Oh,
beginning.
that's right. Well, actually, I want to start out with a comment on, you mentioned bumper stickers, and there was a bumper sticker that sticks in my mind ever since I saw it. It says, bombing for peace is like fucking for virginity. Sorry about the word. But I saw that once. It's burned in the brain.
Yeah, that's what you stand up with. Well, and what you're standing up for is for the right of people to say what is important to them.
Okay,
Yeah.
that worked.
Yeah, well, thank you.
One of the things that I always am commenting on, I guess standing up for, I worked in substance abuse for 20 years, and standing up for people addicted to heroin.
Yes.
In recovery, they come to our methadone clinic, and people frequently are saying, oh, it's just another drug. Well, it's another medication. It's helping people fight the drug abuse and withdrawal, slowly and without pain. And there are even people who are maintained on that medication for life.
Right,
And, it's like insulin for a diabetic.
right.
It's treating a disease.
Treating the disease.
One of the other things that I stand up for is our multi-faith church.
Thank you.
People are, like, you're a minister? Yeah, I'm a minister. In a multi-faith church. And people are like, well, what do you mean multi-faith? I'm like, everybody comes together. We have all different religions and all different faiths and beliefs. We all come together, we worship together, and we have a good time.
That's
and then we eat.
perfect. Yes.
Cookies.
And we eat. Then back to cookies again, yeah.
I know it was funny because I was looking for a menorah one year, and somebody said, I didn't know you were Jewish, or are you Jewish, something like that. And I said, well, I'm not Jewish. I am what I am. And
Yeah,
that's
that's
kind of
good.
a little bit of everything.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Mel. Okay, and Art. What do you stand up for?
Stand up for animal vision. So, let's see, so I was looking at this when I came in, and I was looking for my vaccination card, and I saw this, I started thinking about it, and I just started writing, so. Democracy, small d. Equal rights and treatment. The weak, the tired, the poor, the young, the old, the righteous. The one that asks for help. And then capital D and capital R, Democrats and Republicans.
Okay.
So that's what But I had time to think of it. So I just started writing. And if you know me, and if you know what I do, I get to put that in practice. And I get to put my...
What do you do?
So I support people in grief. So I show up when
Yes,
there's been-
Janet's old job.
Janet.
Oh, yeah, done.
So, and I live it, and I live it in my block, in my neighborhood, and if there's anybody needs help, we're a really strange neighborhood because most people want to just keep to themselves. And I'm like in their face, no, let me help you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Art. Yes, Jeannie.
Well, I stand up for the oppressed, whoever and wherever they are, and the arts.
Yay, thank you, yeah. Yes.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Art. Thank you, Art. Kathleen, what do you stand up for?
I stand up for transgender rights and LGBTQ rights. In my workplace, I have the opportunity to do that with books, and I will say, it's like the younger generation, they're like definitely becoming more expressive, and I think coming out, and especially like I'm seeing like an increase in like transgender community, in the high school population, and some of the books that I've selected are on other states' banned books list. Texas and Florida have banned, say like Black Flamingo or other books that are young adult, and so that's one way one thing I stand up for, and then just for everyone to have a voice and to be heard.
Wonderful.
That and the environment.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. John, what do you stand up for?
Well, I also stand up for trans rights. They need all the help they can get these days. And I'm pro-choice, so I stand up for abortion rights. I stand up for animal rights, love dogs, love cats. And that's about it.
Thank you. That's a lot, yeah. Okay, Ruth, what do you stand up for?
So basically, everything that everyone said, because hello,
Plus.
right? Extra. But I also want to specifically mention what Chris said about standing up, for basically, it was like, she mentioned, her intrusive thoughts or narcissistic thoughts or whatever. But it's like standing up for your own self, for your own dignity, because yours matters just as much as everyone else's. You don't need to let yourself on fire to keep other people warm. That's not how it works. Or well, you could, but not very long, right? And you're small. So, yeah, your own self and being able to reach out for your own support system, because I also struggle with intrusive thoughts that they tell me lies, and I have to ask for it.
Thank you. And I like the way you keep using the I statement and not saying they need to, they should, or he or she should, because the person who is thinking the thought is you. So put it in the first person. I feel, I think, it really helps. Well, Eduardo, there you are. What do you stand up for besides the Zoomers?
Let's see. Yes, Mama Boon. I'm just looking at the chat here. Can I catch up them first?
Okay.
All right. So here we go. From Joyce C., I stand up for my beliefs as to who I am, my right as a human being who is a descendant of African civilization, for the rights of women, to name just a few. From Sky, I stand up, all in caps, love, 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 and we all have the right to love. And I love you, Mama Boon. From Patty B., I stand up for all people of color and have since childhood. I stand up to live my life as a whole being of love and compassion. I also stand up for plants and animals, for the love and care of our Mother Earth. And let's see. From Ann Corbin, in the late 60s and early 70s, I wrote letters and sent care packages to our soldiers in Vietnam. Even though I stand for peace, I also stand for our military. I receive responses from very grateful soldiers. I stand for keeping my boundaries. I stand for good health care. I stand for rights for all, equal rights for all. I stand for diversity. I stand for children.
Good.
And if Ed was going to share, he would say,
Stand up to say it.
he might say, I stand up for those that don't believe in some aspect of their abilities, and I just try and come in and show them, yes, they can figure it out, they can do it. And that's relatively small, but you never know, 5, 10 years, the ability to do something, they might propel someone else. It's the old butterfly flapping wings, and across the planet, there's something magical that happens.
Wow.
Thank you so much. Let's everybody give a hand too. I want to thank you all so very much. That was fantastic. And at this point in time, we're going to be passing the basket, and I'm so glad Mary's here, because last week we didn't know who was going to pass the basket, because our beautiful redhead usually does it.
And Dottie, may I share something?
Yes.
I want to share that this is our spiritual community, my friends. And Dottie and Corky and Ed and all of you that come and prepare for these incredibly meaningful services, we need to support that with our money, with our green energy. We need to support it so that these beautiful women do not go into debt, keeping us alive. And I'm being that honest because I think that's what needs to be said. And I'm just offering that I prime the pump with my check. Okay. That's kind of my little spiritual tradition. And I'm going to hand it to our beloved Mary. Okay. Let us support
okay,
this
and
amazing community.
And let's say our blessing for the basket. I give thanks for my spiritual community. I live in a world of freedom and abundance. I am happy to support my spiritual community. Thank you, Universal Spirit, for your everlasting love and support, and so it is. And I want to thank you so very much for those of you who came here today. We have donuts, we have coffee, and for the closing prayer, who would like to do a closing prayer? Art, would you like to do a closing prayer?
Absolutely.
Okay, from there, or do you want to come up to the microphone?
Well, I could come to the microphone.
Yeah, we'd love it.
Is it pre-written or just?
It's just whatever you want to say.
Oh, beautiful.
From your heart.
From my heart.
Yeah.
All right.
If you'd all close your eyes.
When I get in front of a mic, I might say, hi, my name's Art. I'm a human being. I'm a human being. My name's Art. So let's pray. Lord, we ask you that we come together as one today, one group of many ideas and many people and many hearts. That we come together with a purpose to stand up, and that we write these things and we say these things in front of you and others because we mean them and we're not just talking. You know, we ask for strength today. We ask for strength to take care of the things that we need to take care of, and take care of the people, including ourselves, that need some extra strength, and need some extra guidance, maybe some extra wisdom or an extra friend today. And we just take a moment to thank you for giving us all of the things you've given us. Without them, we are nothing. And with them and with you, we can be everything. So we pray for strength and guidance in the new week. We pray that our purpose and our lives will impact the lives that we interact with this coming week. And we pray this. Amen.
Thank you so very much. That's wonderful. I want to thank you all, and if you want to stick around and have coffee and donuts, please do. And I want to thank Mel for being up here from Southern California. Thank Art for joining our group as a new person. You know, we really do appreciate it. Thank you, John and Ed, for helping us set up, and Ed doing the recording, music, all of the things that you do over there are fantastic. Anybody who's ever had Ed help them, I think we realize that he is absolutely a perfect angel here on the planet.
He's a master.
Yep. Thank you so very much, Ed. I want you all to have, I love your hat. I'd like you all to have a very wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. And Corky, who's speaking next week?
It is Eileen.
West Coast. Eileen is going to tell her story. Yep, so we'll be looking forward to have her. So thank you so very much. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye now. We didn't ask for birthdays. Anybody have a birthday this week? I didn't think they did, but I was just assuming. Yeah. Okay. Happy birthday, Sean. Thank you.
Yay, thank you.
Yay, thank you.